At the heart of the AgustaWestland chopper scam is the account of one man who's been variously called a middleman and a kingpin by both a court in Italy as well as investigative agencies back home in India, whom they believe could hold a key to the puzzle about where the money trail ends. We're talking, of course, about James Christian Michel, who's now wanted by Indian investigative agencies. He's offered to cooperate with them on the assurance that he's not arrested if he comes back to India. Indian investigative agencies say that's out of the question. Giving his version of events now here in Dubai is Christian Michel himself, joined by my colleague Sudhir Ranjan Sen to take us through the many twists and turns of a case that has literally caused a political earthquake back home in India. Mr. Michel, the fact of the matter is that you have been charged with accepting 44 million euros worth of bribes or kickbacks. The court in Italy puts that number at 44 million euros. The Indian investigative agencies are looking at a minimum of 30 million euros. You have, of course, proclaimed your innocence, but the fact remains, what did you get that 44 million euros for then?
Right. The 44 million euros is a figure that's arrived in a document discovered in Guido Hashke's bag, which he was hiding under his mother's bed. The document has no validation. It's not been authenticated. I only received it when I received my arrest warrant, where they had to bring evidence with the warrant. Otherwise, it was kept from me. Once I saw the document, I was able to evaluate its authenticity, call in experts to assist me in this process, and I think we've destroyed its authenticity.
You're questioning its authenticity, but when I interviewed the judge in Milan who actually delivered this judgment, he said to me, and these were his exact words, he believes that document to be authentic. Now, what he meant by that was, he can't prove that those payments were actually made yet, but he says Hashke did write this document. There are, of course, references to the fact that you have a writing disability, so he wrote it for you, and this actually computed the various kickbacks that were paid off to various people, including a contentious reference to a figure called AP that the BJP has suggested means Ahmed Patel, the political secretary of Sonia Gandhi.
Right. The answer to that is very simple. The Honourable Judge has had no opportunity to evaluate my side of the story. I couldn't travel to Italy to present my side of the story.
Why not?
Because I was going to be arrested. An arrest warrant was issued against me.
So then you're essentially an absconder and a fugitive.
But I have no choice, because if I go there, I'll be arrested. And once you're arrested, you're not allowed to communicate at all from jail. So how can I defend myself? It's a catch-22. You go there, you can't talk. You don't go there, you can't talk. So either way, you can't talk. But while that was going on, I used the time to bring in experts to get all the authentication I needed, which I've now done, and I'm now ready to defend myself vigorously and prove it. Of course, they have to believe what Hashke says. He's made a plea bargain. He is their star witness. And that is the only piece of evidence they have is him. So if he falls away, if his credibility is destroyed, they have no case.
Before Sudhi comes in, how much money are you willing to accept you received? You're clearly saying I did not receive 44 million euros. Are you saying that?
Oh yes, no, never received.
So how much money did you receive?
I tell you what they've done. They've done right. They said, we need 44 million. So what we'll do is we'll go through all of his accounts and we'll stop when we finally bring it all together and it equals 44 million. So they had to go for 14 years of work I've done for Westland, not AgustaWestland, Westland, because Agusta hadn't even bought them at the time I was working for them, and said, right, we've now got enough money to say that's what he was paid, before the VVIP even started.
So are you accepting that you got 44 million euros from Westland over 14 years?
Well,
is that number accurate?
Probably over 20 years.
44 million euros. Yeah. And how much did you get specifically for the Agusta deal?
6 million.
And you're sticking to that figure?
Oh yes, absolutely.
We'll delve deeper into that. So go ahead.
My question is, I mean, what is the kind of work that you did for AgustaWestland in the AW101 purchase deal? And also, what are these names? Are they familiar to you? Air Commodore Gautam Nair, if I can give you that name, Group Captain Shashi Bhushan Sharma, Major General S.C.N. Jattar, then J.B. Subramaniam, S.R. Rajalakshmi, and it goes on. There's a long list. Who are these people?
Right.
What were they doing for you?
Some of them were involved in assisting in the implementation stage of the contract. First of all, let me say, there are no agreements existing, there never were, and they don't exist, of any percentage agreement or any agreement whereby if the deal is done I get reward. There was no agreement in place until the deal was signed, because to do that would have been illegal. That would have been an illegal contract.
It was a post
Yes,
post-service
support,
contract.
exactly. And it runs into about 5 pages of work. And it includes advice on media, it includes monitoring and understanding political events, changes in government, changes in law, changes in protocol, changes in the DPP, the procurement document, which is huge. But it also goes into managing offset. I was engaged in setting up a simulator centre in Bangalore. I was the one who put together the Tata rotorcraft deal, all of this. I had nearly 35 people working for me, some of whom you've named.
But Ms. Michelle, the judgment in Milan
Yes.
actually says that even this post-contract service, that the services were vague. I'm quoting from the judgment, that they were vague, that the amount of money you received was disproportionate to the service that you gave, that the service was in fact erratic. And there's certainly a suggestion in the judgment that these were inflated figures, and you were basically given money, which was kickbacks for work you did not do.
Well, there's also a part in the judgment which refers to the audit where it said the work was valuable and they couldn't have managed without it. So against every argument there's a counter, and if you have the counter, then it's for intelligent people like yourselves to come up with a decision. But at the moment, the only thing the Italians are putting out are the negatives.
So if I can come in here, you say that the contract that you would have got is post, once
Yes.
the thing would have serviced and you would have
Yeah.
helped them service it. But then the contract was nearly half signed, or not, it didn't go through. So why did you get the money?
When you say the contract was nearly half signed,
I mean,
what do you mean?
it was signed, 3 helicopters came in. Why did you get all the 6? As you say, you got 6 million. Why would you get all the 6?
It wasn't paid in a lump sum. It was paid over 2 years as we were going through, and it was supposed to continue as we get into delivery, because there's an enormous amount of work involved. You've got, I have people I brought on to advise us on training. What's the level of training? India's very specific. It has a very difficult environment. Working
What
in session.
exactly do you mean by a difficult environment?
Well,
in fact, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What is difficult?
Well, certainly it's a very large country. You've got enormous variations in temperature. You can go from 50 degrees down to minus 40 on the same day almost if you're going up into session. All of this requires training and needs a certain amount of spares provisioning, which is different from anywhere else in the world. I don't know another country operating.
Difficult country or complex country sounds like code for you can't get work done until you grease some palms, until you pay some people.
No, I think it's not amusing, it's sad. Why is it so difficult to India to imagine that a deal of this size can be done under the stewardship of men like Vajpayee, Dr. Mohan Singh, Anthony, who are clearly men who don't engage in this sort of thing.
But Anthony wanted the testing of the choppers to be done inside India if eventually it was done outside.
But if I asked you as a non-professional, you would say to me you would prefer it to be done in India as well. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable stand. But when you meet then the manufacturer who comes up with hundreds of reasons, including delay and expense, all of which would end up on India's table, or you send a team to their facility where they have everything, all the equipment to do the testing, it makes sense. They were persuaded. And they do this, by the way, many times. And don't forget, to fly a helicopter is not like flying an aircraft.
But then the AW101 was not even ready, and the testing was done on a different kind of a helicopter.
Now,
do you find that a bit odd?
Well, no, now you're getting into an area which I wanted to cover. I think you need to go to the manufacturers, all the contenders, there were 3 contenders, and ask, when you do a trial, what sort of a platform, which is what we call an aircraft, what sort of a platform would you use? They certainly used the 101. So at what point does it stop being the aircraft? Do you have to have every switch, everything? Do you have to have the color correct? Or are you allowed to have a type of aircraft to demonstrate which will be the type delivered? I cannot believe, do not believe, and I'm quite sure they demonstrated a 101. There are many things in the CAG report which are wrong. If I can give you a simple indication, the Honourable Doctor who gave his speech in Parliament, which I watched.
Which doctor?
Dr. Subramaniam Swamy.
Who you say is a good friend of your father's.
Yeah, he was actually.
Is he a good friend of yours as well?
No. I will explain the relationship with my father and I. It's a public, it's from public record.
But Subramaniam Swamy says you're a middleman who's now being celebrated by the media. He questions even the fact that we're giving you this platform to speak. He believes you're a kingpin.
Well, yeah, but if you look, there's been a very clever exercise put up against me, saying I'm bribing journalists. So anything that came out just before I started giving interviews. It was done to negate anything I say in an interview.
But you did have a contract to manage the media.
Oh yes, absolutely.
What the hell does managing the media mean?
Well, things like recommending who are the most influential reporters you would invite to a factory to come and look at the product. for example.
On a junket, on an all-paid-for junket.
No.
Which then would be, it would suggest that it would question, I mean, there would be one argument that would question the objectivity of what those journalists report.
You would be right if the enterprises which employ those journalists allow them to go spinning off on junkets, but they don't. And you don't want to take a journalist who's got a bad reputation for taking, do you? You need to take the best of the best, be above board and do a perfect job. Otherwise, you defeat the purpose. You just end up looking like a badly run organization. You take the best. But can we go back to the point? The Honorable Dr.
Subramaniam Swamy.
Who I have a great, I've heard from people in America who he's a tremendous intellect. And
your father apparently described him as a brilliant mind.
A brilliant mind, yes. And he has, it's quite clear. But you can only be as good as the information you're given. He stood up in Parliament and said that the cabin height of the aircraft meant it was a single tender. He had no intention to mislead Parliament, I fully believe. He was simply going on the CAG report. Unfortunately, if he'd only gone on the website of the 3 manufacturers, each one of them stating they can achieve or exceed 1.8 meters cabin height. So, and there are many areas in the CAG report which are totally wrong and demonstrably wrong. So what we need to do, as one honourable member said, is validate all of these documents. And that's the process I want to go through. If this budget sheet is real...
Hashke's budget sheet where he speaks of the payoffs in code to FAM, which is presumably the Tyagi family, to AP, and these are kickbacks that are being paid by you.
Well, that's what he's claiming. But I mean, in his interview with the prosecutor, he says that he thought AP was the Alliance Progressive Party.
Well, the judge said that the witness clearly did not, he said he didn't remember who AP was.
Okay, so let's get this straight. So he has...
Who do you believe AP was?
I think in his mind, I think I knew exactly what he was doing. I think when he prepared this budget sheet and put it in his black bag, he knew exactly what he's doing. He's named very cleverly the entire procurement branch of the Ministry of Defence and then stuck in a politician to give it spice.
You're saying he's deliberately provided cover for himself?
How many times has this happened in India?
Have you ever met Ahmed Patel?
No, never. Why would he see someone like him?
But you know, I was reading today that you visited India 180 times between 2005 and 2013.
Well, probably.
180 times.
Can I explain why?
180 times?
Maybe it can. I mean, I haven't noted it. I believe you if you say it was. But can I explain? You came here this morning. It took you a few hours.
Yes.
India is a beautiful country.
That's not why you were there.
No, let me explain. If I had a weekend, we finish work here Thursday night. So I can spend Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in India, going down to Jaipur. If you can afford that lifestyle, you would take it.
You weren't going to be a tourist.
Not tourist. I used to stay there, I lived there, I had a place there. It was my second home. I much prefer to be in India than in the UK or Dubai.
Which brings me to another question. What was this EXIM or this media EXIM company that you floated?
Well, it was a number of things. I had an idea of promoting Indian music. That was the original. That's why I set it up, to promote Indian music. And we actually did a contract.
But the kind of money that was, that flew through its company.
Well, we tried a couple of things. First of all, I helped finance a number of properties, which I used, which the CBI know all about. And then you said the kind of money. 6 crores? I think is a figure.
Roughly about that, yes.
So that was used. First of all, I tried some jewellery business which didn't work. The money came back, and that's all been investigated and looked at.
Could I just interrupt you there? Because there's an Enforcement Directorate report, and I actually have bits of it in front of me, that actually says that this company, Media EXIM, was meant for jewellery import, but that jewellery was never imported. And the Enforcement Directorate has concluded that this was actually a front money that was channeling the kickbacks that you were receiving. There was no authentic work being done by a company like Media EXIM, and these were shell companies.
No, well, Media EXIM, it did some genuine work. In that we tried to promote a gentleman called Dali Mindi, which didn't work, but anyway, that's another story. But in the end, what I did with a lot of that money was to simply help to finance Mr. Nanda to buy property, which then I could use.
For what?
Well, to stay in. It wasn't for kickbacks or bribes. I preferred to stay in my own place in a hotel.
Which brings me back to another thing. I mean, you talk about the Hashke note being fake, but there is another note that was written to Peter Hewlett.
Yes.
Yeah, 2008, 15th March.
Yep, that was distributed by my office.
You've never denied.
And can we, for the benefit of our viewers who may not be familiar with the ins and outs of this, the note which is typed in 2008, written on 15th March, and Peter Hewlett says it's authentic, written from you, speaks of Sonia Gandhi being the driving force behind this deal, and speaks of people who are her key advisors. Those advisors include Pranab Mukherjee, who's now president. They include Ahmed Patel. They include M.K. Narayanan, who was national security advisors, and about eight
and
Manmohan Singh, of course.
Yeah.
And also there is another letter. There's a third document which actually speaks about how Manmohan Singh, the Italian Prime Minister, should pick up the phone and call Manmohan Singh to also put pressure for this deal. So we are actually looking at three separate documents. We're looking at the 2008 note. We're looking at the letter which speaks of Manmohan Singh being given a call by the Italian Prime Minister, and we're looking at Hashke's Yes Money budget sheets.
Right.
So the 2008 note.
Right, okay. Part of my job is to advise the company on who are the influential people who they should be targeting with promotional work. An ambassador or a high commissioner, an ambassador's job is to promote his country's products. I mean, it's clear. If I knew those people, wouldn't I go direct and not bother saying to the company to go to the ambassador, to go to them? Wouldn't it just be easier to go direct if they were so close to me?
So hang on, you accept that the note is genuine?
Oh, the note is genuine.
So the 2008 note, which speaks of Sonia as a key advisor, I beg your pardon, as a driving force, and says these are the influential people around her who are her key advisors, is real.
Yes. It came from my office. We were requested, who are the important people in India today? So we sent them that message.
What does it mean to target them? Because the note also uses the language targeting.
It means in the diplomatic term. The diplomats, whenever they get an opportunity at a cocktail party or a function, if they can introduce the fact that it's a very good product, they should do so.
But that's exactly the point. I mean, does it end there or does it go beyond that?
Well, how
do you then say that the product is a good product? It was the best product. It was the cheapest product compared to the others in the fray. And therefore, India should buy it. If this is what is required to be done, go and talk to, say, Mrs. Gandhi and try to, in a way, influence.
Yes.
How do you respond to that?
Well, not influence is the wrong word. Can you imagine what the French ambassador is doing today to try and rescue the Rafale deal? I mean, it is his job. And the company will be advising him on who they think he should be going to, how they think, because they are the ultimate...
So you are writing a note that suggests that the British High Commissioner, who I think is Richard Stagg at that point, you are saying that you have identified these are the people to target, that it's Mrs. Sonia Gandhi who really holds the keys to power, and these are the people around her, and the British High Commissioner should be targeting these people?
You should be promoting to them.
What does the word target mean?
Well,
because it sounds suspiciously,
it sounds a bit aggressive, maybe.
It sounds dubious.
Well, I wouldn't say...
It sounds dubious with the retrospective knowledge that there have been kickbacks in this deal, and then you see this note about targeting
that comes back to my point again. Everyone is assuming there have been kickbacks. I would really like to get into this question of kickbacks, because if you took out the kickbacks, then everyone would go, well, that's a perfectly normal note. Peter Hewlett, when he was interviewed by Times Now, had no problem saying, look, there is nothing wrong with this note. I received it, and I took it forward with the High Commission that they should try and support us, as should the English Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Minister.
You're making the argument that the note is a networking note. It's a lobbying. It's a kind
clearly,
of go lobby them and
yeah.
try and convince them that this is a good deal.
Yes.
But then the problem, Mr. Michel, is that the CAG report actually talks about inflated prices. It talks about more choppers being purchased than were necessary. It talks about the government actually paying more, not just changing the specifications, but paying more than even what the company had asked for.
I think the CAG report needs to be validated, because the CAG report also says the cabin height of only one aircraft is 1.8. That's the most simplest things. India has hundreds of MiL-17s, and the CAG don't even know the height of the cabin.
Why did you think Sonia Gandhi was the driving force behind this deal?
Why,
and there's a line in there saying that she won't fly these Mi-17s anymore.
Question, why is Ahmed Shah so important in India today?
He's not more important than Narendra Modi.
I'm not sure.
No, he's not more important than Narendra Modi.
Okay, well, but this is an opinion. I have a different one.
So your opinion was Sonia Gandhi was the most important political figure, and these were the people around her who you were lobbying? What's the word you would use?
Yeah, we see, now you have me worried about my language.
Okay, what's the word you would use? I'm giving you a chance to choose your word. What's the word you would use?
Promote to.
To promote to.
Okay, from there, let me take you...
But this, by the way, is a language thing. Don't forget.
You're saying it doesn't mean money was paid. You're saying you were just trying to change their minds or influence their opinion.
Yeah, I'm going through a channel, not even...
Going through the British High Commission. We'll get into that, so go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, from there, let me take you to much more recent times.
Yes.
There has been an allegation made in the floor of the House that a certain MP, a member of the Parliament, perhaps a minister also in the former government, did come and meet you very recently as April 28th this year. Is that correct? And if so, can you tell us who that person is?
No, I mean, nobody comes to visit me. I've had 2 sets of visitors recently from India. I am suffering from just about every disease you can imagine. You would think nobody visits me.
Nobody from the Congress, no Congress former.
Did a former Congress leader accidentally meet you at a hotel? That is a suggestion.
You mean a brush-by meeting? No,
a brush-by meeting, and we'll come to brush-by meetings. No. But did you have a brush-by meeting of your own with a Congress leader?
No.
You categorically deny even accidentally bumping into a Congress leader here in Dubai.
No, absolutely. There's no bumping in, no brush-by, no meeting in Dubai or anywhere.
So let's come to one of the most contentious claims that you have made.
Right.
You have said now on 2 different occasions, in 2 different letters, one to the Prime Minister, one to the International Tribunal, that there was a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Italian Prime Minister on the sidelines of the UN meet in New York. The Ministry of External Affairs has now categorically, in writing, denied that there was any such meeting at all. Does this then damage the credibility of anything else you may be saying in those letters, including the fact that you were under pressure to name the Gandhis? Why should we believe you on that when there was no such meeting?
Right. The Minister of External Affairs first, when asked, said a brush-by meeting when so many heads of state are in such close proximity is highly likely, or highly possible, I think is a word they used. That was their first statement.
As far as I recall, they didn't respond at all to the initial story.
They did.
But there's a categorical denial from them.
Well, yes. What
categorical
they say
in writing.
Under the auspices of the UN bilateral discussions, there was no meeting. I'm not talking about under the auspices of a bilateral discussion. I'm talking about a casual brush-by meeting, which is a term in diplomacy which means it has a certain amount of deniability attached to it.
Why would you know this sitting in Dubai? Or how would you know it?
Okay, I've been in business for over 30 years at the highest level. I make a point of trying to know what's going on. United Nations, every single head of state was there. Every intelligence service was there. Everybody was watching everybody. It's virtually impossible to do anything there without being known.
But you are faced with this denial. You are seen to be somebody who's creating this outlandish narrative to basically cover your own tracks. Well, why should Indians believe you?
Okay, a couple of questions. Plausible deniability is a point of a brush-by meeting, so the denial was no surprise. The problem they have is so many people are aware of the meeting. The Italian ambassador in Delhi, he knows all about it. He briefed people in Finmechanical who briefed me as my second tier of information.
The current Italian ambassador?
Yeah. Let's say the Italian embassy.
The Italian embassy briefed Finmechanica, who told you that Mr. Modi, our Prime Minister, had a brush-by meeting with the Italian Prime Minister. So you are basically saying this story comes from the Italian embassy. Are you willing to name who said this in the Italian embassy?
No, I'm not.
Because Why not? It would add more evidence to your claim.
At the moment, there's a very delicate negotiation going on, and I don't want to interfere in that.
Which negotiation between whom?
Between whether this poor Marine returns back to Italy or not. I think we need to let that happen.
But there's been a rubbishing of that suggestion of a quid pro quo.
Well, let's see. But I mean, if you look at the facts, the strange things that have been going on, did you know my arrest warrant was issued on the 24th of September, the same day that the Indian Prime Minister arrived in New York? Did you know that when I wrote to the International Court of Arbitration that I predicted there was going to be an attack on Mrs. Gandhi, which was an agreement between Italy and India? Did you think that the new evidence that came out just recently, that could have come out
Why would the
back?
Italian government be complicit in an attack on an opposition leader in another country? Why?
Well, because, first of all, they're very upset with Congress for not supporting them in the Marines issue. And believe me, it's quite clear, you don't have to take my word for it, there's a lot of anxiety between these two governments. The relationship between Europe has been damaged over this issue for India. It's not just an Italian issue. So there's a great deal of irritation inside Italy at this moment, which everybody knows about. Now they have a new government, they have an opportunity to solve the issue, a new beginning, and the suggestions of a deal on the table of a way of doing it. The trouble with the suggestion of the deal is that it requires an illegal act to have happened involving Mrs. Gandhi, which it hasn't happened, which is why I knew in November that this is going to be a big mess.
I'm going to get into that, but Sudhi, go ahead, yeah.
Let me just take your reasoning a little forward. As you said that you predicted this, a couple of months ago, and this is exactly what is happening, trying to drag in...
Yeah, 6 months ago.
6 months ago, trying to drag in the Gandhi families. Predict for us, if India is not able to let the Marines go back home, what is going to happen?
Well, this is what I was trying to avoid. This is what I was trying to say to the Prime Minister. I've been watching these sort of things all my life, and I'm very interested. I'm really enjoying the American elections. If the basis of a deal is flawed, the deal will collapse. The Honourable Prime Minister is now in a horrible position that if he lets the sailor go, the Marine go, he'll be accused of having some relationship, and all of this is clear. If he doesn't let them go, the Italians may do something unpleasant to
What is
Italia.
unpleasant?
Well, admit to a meeting.
You're actually suggesting that there's a level of blackmail going on here,
No,
that
blackmail is
the
too strong a
Italians would
word.
say that this meeting did take place with Mr. Modi if the Marine is not allowed to go.
I'm just working through a scenario.
Let me give you another scenario. The scenario is that you are saying all this because you want to get out of the hole you find yourself in. And let me read to you what the Enforcement Directorate preliminary report actually says about your role. And it says that, this is from the Enforcement Directorate report, that Michelle, in collusion with associates, managed to make inroads in the Indian Air Force and could influence and change the consistent stand of the Indian Air Force regarding mandatory service sealing of the chopper. And it goes on to make other points about how you and your associates basically softened the Air Force and literally infiltrated
Right.
the
Okay,
Indian Air
but
Force.
let me give you a list of witnesses I could bring to refute that.
Who are they?
Carlo Gerosa, Guido Haschke's partner, Guido Haschke, Giuseppe Orsi, Bruno Spagnolini, all of the people witnessing the court hearings in Busto Sizio, because they all agreed I didn't enter this case until the end of 2006 after the RFP came out. I wasn't even there. I had not even met Orsi before the RFP came out. So how can I have been involved?
But investigators suggest that because you came on board at a stage when the deal went from 700 crores to several thousand crores, that when it escalated in value, that was your role.
No, the RFP was already issued, 12 aircraft, already done before I arrived. I literally got tens of witnesses, all of whom have corroborated this, tens of them.
So what was your
Enemies,
role, Mr. Michel?
friends.
What is the role you're willing to admit to here?
Implementation, that's what I do.
What does that mean?
Well, that's just, what I will leave with you, or I'll have to send it to you, is the 5 pages of my work to implement the document.
And the court in Milan doesn't accept that was implemented?
No, the court does. The court
Well, the
of Milan
court said
did.
it was vague and disproportionate to the amount of money you
The
got.
prosecutor said that. He has said many things, some right, some wrong. The prosecutor said lots of things. According to the prosecutor, it's everything bad about me ever said is correct. And these notes are all real, even though...
But the judge has upheld some of the findings of the prosecution.
He's upheld the over-invoicing.
And he's actually spoken about an internal report of AgustaWestland that actually questions why you were getting 18 million euros for buying back Pavan Hans helicopters that were, in a bad state, that were never effectively purchased. And the judge in his verdict is quoting from an internal report of AgustaWestland.
No, again, I have no contract to buy aircraft from Pavan Hans.
So what was this 18 million euro contract?
It was to shut down a product globally, not just Pavan Hans.
But then you said you got only 6 million euros, so what was this 18 million euros?
But that's got nothing to do with VVIP. That is absolutely a separate deal. It's a contract that doesn't mention Pavan Hans, it doesn't mention India with one word. I took helicopters not just of Indian origin, but from all sorts of origins, from America, from UK, lots of planes, put them all together and shut down the whole possibility of those aircraft ever flying again. It would be fine if Westland, the company, not Augusta, Westland, a military company, who has no civil products, carried on, nobody cares. Once they became AgustaWestland, with a very, very large civil business, they can't afford to have another crash. There were a group of people going to put those aircraft back in the air. And it's documented in the internet, and they were looking at values of 50 million, 40 million for the whole fleet, with the spares, as a going concern. Then people say, India sold them for 800 or 900,000. India didn't own those helicopters. It was an aid program. Whatever India received, they had to give back to the British government because they were a gift to India. And if India sold them, any proceeds had to be returned to
So you did get 18 million euros, but you're saying
yes.
it's not connected
It's nothing to do with this. And
to the VVIP chopper purchase.
Absolutely not. And it's been audited, and they know whether they source and application of funds has been done forensically. And it didn't go to...
But the internal report does question why you were given that money.
Yeah, but they're capable of doing that. But allow me to answer it. I've given you an answer, but no one's... I have not been investigated. I want to be investigated, but I don't want to spend years in jail. I have a young family. I have to make money. I can't... The embassy, the British High Commission is not going to put me up and pay me a salary. I'm not a Marine. If I go to India, my kids have to go out of education. I have to sell my house. I mean, I'm over. And I'm not prepared to sacrifice my family over something which is a forgery done by a man who didn't like the fact that I found out who he was and what he was doing.
Let me take you back to another letter or note written by, since you say that you were hired by Mr. Orsi. Why do you think in July 2013 he would write and say, call Monty or the ambassador on my behalf and ask him to call Prime Minister Manmohan Singh?
Yeah.
What exactly is happening? Because by 2013, you know, things have gone wrong in India, things have gone wrong in Italy. What exactly was this? Since you were advising the company, can you tell us what was happening?
Well, yeah, I wasn't advising. By then I was cut off. The company, they did some very strange things. They wrote to the Indian government that there's no, they can find no evidence of any corruption anywhere. And then they wrote me a letter saying, due to all the investigations, we terminate, we desist, we don't want to know you anymore. So a little bit of two-facedness there. I can only say what I know about Orsi. He's an extremely fine gentleman, and I'd stand by him today. I don't care what I hear. I cannot believe he was involved in...
But this is Orsi's letter.
Yeah, let me come to...
And if you believe Orsi, then Orsi is the one talking about...
Let me give you the state of mind the man was in. He was going from the chairman of Italy's largest company at midnight on whatever day it was, and then the next morning he's in the back of a police car, and spent 3 months in jail. And in jail, you're not allowed to telephone, you have no communication. I believe you can write, but they restrict the amount of stamps you can get hold of. I think this is a man in extreme stress, extreme pain, reaching out to anyone he can reach out for help.
Why only Prime Minister Manmohan Singh? Why not his own people who helped him become the chairman in Italy?
Well, because these people, Monty, for example, was a bureaucrat, but also clearly a very good man, brought there to clean up Italy, to help World Bank, Europe, keep funding Italy through this crisis. The only people he could write to were people he's 100% sure of their integrity, which would be Monty and Dr. Mohan Singh. If he wrote to anyone else, it would be, aha, look.
Did the call take place?
No, I don't believe... He couldn't make a phone call. Oh, you mean their call? That I don't know.
So, you know, what's confusing is all the three contentious notes.
Yeah.
You don't deny that they existed. You agree that the 2008 letter was written by you?
Yeah, but I don't think it's a contentious note.
Well, we
Sorry.
do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We agreed to disagree.
You say Hashke did write that budget sheet.
He says he did.
You just think it was a plant to cover his own tracks.
When he wrote it and where he wrote
three,
it.
you do acknowledge that Orsi, sitting in jail, did write this letter suggesting that Monty should call the Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Doesn't this all add up? Let me ask you the basic question.
Go ahead.
Do you accept that bribes were paid in AgustaWestland? Do you accept that somebody received kickbacks? And do you believe that this money trail goes beyond former Air Chief S.P. Tyagi?
Beyond, I would say below would be a better word.
Below?
I'm
not higher than, but lower?
No, I'm quite sure that, okay, it is quite possible that there were kickbacks and bribes paid, number one.
When? When do you... Can you give us a date?
Well, I must, first of all, no, I can't, because you're asking me what I think Hashke was doing, because Hashke's at the centre of this. In these notes, I'm giving you a phone transcript, where Hashke says, if Kaitam talks, we'll be skinned alive. What's he talking about? Hashke's talked a great deal. He's given the names of many people to whom he has given his largesse. Many directors of Film Mechanical, all of whom are in trouble. And yet he's still petrified of something that Kaitam has.
Which could be what?
Now you're asking me to speculate. I am absolutely convinced, but it's my feeling. My investigations are well underway, because I have the access to all the documents now. I am quite sure a great deal of money is either still sitting in Mauritius or went back to Italy.
So you're actually saying the money was round-tripped? And therefore the bribes were paid more to Italians than to Indians?
Yes.
Then what did you mean by saying that the kickbacks went lower than S.P. Tyagi,
Well, I mean, these are lower people. These are nobodies. I mean, you know, directors of Film Mechanica, they're no one. These are not senior government officials.
So you do not believe that money went, that there's a political money trail, whereas the judge in Milan told me that he thinks it's quite possible that the trail went to beyond Tyagi to politicians.
Yes, but he's saying that on the basis of not interviewing a single person and having none of my evidence. So he only has half the story.
So do you believe that SP Tyagi received money?
If he, I don't know. But what I can say, if he did, he was a front to simply make Hashki look legitimate.
Front for Hashki?
Yeah, to say, look, I've got all of these big friends, I'm a powerful man in India, you need me. Orsi didn't want to take him on. Orsi said in his statements he didn't want to take him on. He was ordered to by Finmeccanica. So why?
Quite clearly, I mean, Hashke and you, I mean, you've given us...
we truly don't like each other. I
you
think this
don't like each other.
When did you fall out?
Well, he claims in his notes 2008. See, I met him end of 2000. Well, it was really January 2007, December 2006. So we had relations, or we met each other for a year, 2007, because also he said you two should cooperate, or work together, or discuss. 2008 it started to fall to pieces. In 2009 he asked me if I could donate some money to his friends in Finmeccanica, at which I refused, and that was the end. But I'd also criticised his structure, the structure for the engineering work, because paying Tunisia for engineering work done in India means that we don't get any offset credits. You understand the offset. So that meant that all this money going to apparently quite good software work was not being counted against offset. So I said to Orsi, look, pay directly to India, get the offset credits, go through the government, get the approvals and permissions, it won't take long, and then we have our first offset business done, and we're started. It looks very good for the deal, and India will be very pleased. And apparently, I wasn't there, Hashki went mad when he heard I was trying to interfere in the structure of his business. And that was the end of my... I'm sure that was when these notes got written, that's when everything went.
But just give us a sense. I mean, Finmeccanica, AgustaWestland, they bring you in to advise, to advise them, to put through the contract after it's signed. Why did they ever bring in Hashki?
Well, that's...
I mean, why? Why would
that's why I would like you to...
I'd
like you to go and ask Mr. Orsi why you would bring in Hashki.
You just now said that you would stand by him, and he is an honourable man.
Yeah,
that's what you said.
Yes, but he still has to live inside the Italian political environment. If his boss tells him you should take on this guy, you do it.
So there's another controversy with Hashke that actually links to the Congress party. He was mysteriously made a director for 2 months in a company called MRMGF.
Yeah.
Subramaniam Swamy and other BJP leaders have actually suggested that this is a family connected to an aide to Rahul Gandhi, Kanish Singh. Kanish Singh has said, well, this is my family, but I'm now estranged from them, and I was estranged from them well before Hashke became a director. Does it not strike you as peculiar? Since you believe that this scam actually involves more Italians than Indians, does it not strike you as peculiar that Hashke, with no apparent expertise, is made a director in a firm with some historic links to an aide of Rahul Gandhi, but also a firm implicated in the Commonwealth Games scam?
Well, when I heard that he joined that, I assumed that this is something Kaitam had done for him. Some kind of a look how powerful I am, I can get you onto the board. And I think a lot of people, if they're offered that opportunity to go onto such a big company board, would take it. But it was something I understood Kaitam had arranged for him.
Why would the company want it? There's obviously something to
gain,
and there's some financial, all of it smacks of some sort of financial collusion.
Well, what I can tell you, and this is the only answer I can give you, is when you're in front of Hashke, he talks very well. I'll give you an example. I had a meeting with Reuters when I was in Milan prosecuting my case against Hashke. I have a criminal case lodged against Hashke in the Milan court. And I met with Reuters, and I gave them the documents I was presenting. They were pretty shocked, because they have met many times Hashke, and said he's a most believable man. He's a doctor of mathematics or economics, I believe. He was in the World Bank. He's a very, very credible man. And when they saw the documents I had, they were absolutely astonished. And I've noticed that since that time, they've rather destabilized and don't comment too much about it, because they don't understand how a man like that could be involved.
Can I just take you a little further back? You've had a long association with India. So has your father. What is it that your father, I know you had a later fallout with your father, but what can you tell us about the kind of work that he did? I believe he did work for the government of India.
Yeah, it's not documented contractual work. He had a number of friends in India.
Rajiv Gandhi was one.
No, let me finish, and then we can get down to specifics. He would get a request from the High Commission in London, Indian High Commission. For example, they wanted to set up a trade deal with Saudi Arabia. They needed to know if Saudi was going to be open to such overtures. So he discussed with the Saudi government about the possibility, and the result was a very good and strong relationship between India and Saudi Arabia, which resulted in oil trade. And I think the Saudi king gifted India 30,000 barrels of oil a month as a result of those meetings.
Who was contacting him from the Indian side?
Oh, it wouldn't be normally the High Commissioner, it would be the Trade Commissioner, or somebody slightly below the High Commissioner.
But it's unusual to call upon...
Well, no, this is the informal, it's not. This is the informal network which goes on all over the world. Every embassy has a lot of friends they call upon when they need specific help for certain projects. Like if they needed to contact the Libyan leader, they could do that as well.
He knew Gaddafi?
Yeah.
Your father knew Gaddafi, and you're saying India used him as a back channel? Yeah,
as a back channel to prepare before, because it's very embarrassing if a government launches into a trade relationship and the country says, we're not interested, go away. I mean, this is why preparation is so important, and this is the sort of things he did for them.
Anything more? Any other departments?
Part of the trouble I have, and this is public record, the last 10 years of my father's life we spent suing each other. We really didn't have a good relationship. He was a difficult man to get on with. So he didn't let me into his so-called empire. I was not a recipient on his will. I was completely cut out. And this is well known.
But the suggestion by Subramaniam Swamy and others is that your father was actually very entrenched in the Congress circles. He knew Rajiv Gandhi well. There is also talk about a defense deal that almost fell through, and Margaret Thatcher and Rajiv Gandhi then talked to make it happen. And therefore, in a sense, you may not have inherited his wealth, but you have inherited his Congress connections.
Yeah, but they've never met me and they don't know me. And I've made no overtures to them whatsoever.
You have met nobody from the Congress party ever?
No,
not one significant leader? No. Not even the 8 you listed as the key advisors to Sonia Gandhi?
Well, if I'd known them, I wouldn't have to request the company to request the High Commissioner to go to them.
So no meeting with the Gandhis?
No.
No meeting with Ahmed Patel?
No.
No meeting with Oscar Fernandez, Pranab Mukherjee?
No one on that list, no one on your name.
SP Tyagi?
No.
Which?
Oh, SP Tyagi, you mean the chief, sorry.
Yes.
I definitely met him at the Gymkhana Club once.
And who took you to meet him?
That was in the Gymkhana. No, it wasn't taken. He was there to hello. Because I knew Julie Tyagi. Hashki introduced me. Julie Tyagi, so I knew them. You know, Hashki was very proud of his connection. But it didn't go much further than that. I mean, Julie's a nice chap. Nothing wrong with him, but...
I want to take you back to 180 trips to India.
Yes.
Tourism doesn't explain it.
No, of
Love
course.
for India doesn't explain
no.
it.
It's not all tourism. There's business as well. You know, I was developing my glass business. I was quite interested in Indian property business, see what we could do there. And I was advising the company. I had advisors working on the implementation stage. So I had many things to do. But I can tell you now, if I had a free weekend, I'd go to India. I once got out of the airport in 19 minutes from gating into the car.
This Tunisia link that you talk about as a route through which money was channeled, there are murmurs in India about this Tunisia link and how somewhere the BJP is making murmurs that this could eventually connect to the Congress. How do you see the Tunisia link? And why are you so keen to give the Congress a clean sheet? It's actually a bit striking that in almost every commentary you say, oh, you know, I'm under pressure to name the Gandhis. It sounds like you're actually here batting for them, and the emphasis is not so much on your own innocence but on theirs.
Well, I tell you what, because
if you don't know them, why do you care what they're being accused of?
Because no one's interested in me. The only way I can if I could rescue myself alone, I would do.
So the only way you can rescue yourself
is by making it very clear that they're not involved and I'm not involved, because I have to rescue them to rescue myself.
So the Gandhis are your exit route from this?
Well, it's clear, because the only reason I'm here now is because of them. If they weren't part of the deal, or if it wasn't seen that this is a good opportunity to make a mess, no one's interested in me. I'm not the issue. But I've been, for 4 years, or 1,400 and something days, I've been defending myself and getting nowhere. So, okay, if I'm accused of paying Congress, let's have it out, let's find out who. And if there is no evidence and it didn't happen, then for heaven's sake, let me out of this mess and get on with my life. But I can't defend myself without bringing them into it, because they are the main accused.
I want to ask you one simple question. Since you do believe that bribes were paid, and as you said that it may have gone lower, it was round-tripped, taken back to Italy, what is the amount that you're looking at? And this you should have a good idea, because the company hired you to do whatever, you know, the after-contract job. What is the kind of money that you're... you think has been made in this?
I mean, we know there was something like 22 million paid on the software business. I don't know what else was paid, because the software which was being delivered to AgustaWestland was of good quality, and the work was definitely being done.
These are the two Chandigarh-based companies?
Yes, that's right. There's no question about that exists, and we looked at the cost of them. You know, in India it's $14, in Europe it's $35. There's a big arbitrage, so very large profits were made. But I don't have the full figures. What I'm quite sure of, and I'm looking because I'm suing Hashki in Switzerland, so I'm also looking for where the money is. It certainly went to Mauritius, and what happened after that, we don't know.
So who's the key kingpin? Since you think it's not you, and who is it beyond Hashki?
Well, I mean, the person who set up the structures must know, and their great concern, this word will be skinned alive if they get hold of Kaitam, which is said here, is really a telling statement. What is it that Kaitam knows? And Hashki doesn't mind giving the Tyagis' names away, doesn't mind giving his friends in Finmechanica, low-level directors, away. So who is it he doesn't want to give away? Who is it will get him skinned alive if he gives that name away?
So who?
I don't know. But it's somebody very important, more important than any of the people he's thrown.
More important
than any of the people he's thrown to the court. He's sacrificed people to do his plea bargain.
But somebody in India or somebody in Italy?
I don't know.
What would be your guess?
Italy. Somebody very important in Italy. Why do you think the company, Finmechanica, paid 7.5 million doing a plea bargain to get out of the investigation? Because the investigation was slowly turning back on Finmechanica. They were recording Finmechanica people talking about Hashki giving them money. It was getting embarrassing. They paid 7.5 million just to get out of the investigation.
Did you pay any journalist a bribe?
No. No.
Did you try and pay them to manage a story?
No, because those kind of journalists are known. And when they do a story for you, it's worse. It'd be better if they did a story for your competitor, because that would cause more trouble. In fact, I'm sure that's been done.
All right, we're in the last couple of minutes, so I think we'll start taking final comments. You said somebody here in the Indian consulate,
yes,
or rather the embassy, contacted you.
Yeah, I got a call from, I assume the visa.
When was this? Did they identify themselves?
Well, they said visa section.
Did they give a name?
No. And I was so taken aback. You'd think I'm switched on 24/7, but I was so shocked when they said, "Hi, this is the Indian embassy here. Have you applied for a visa?" That was the question, so I said no. And I said, "Where are you?" So I'm traveling around UAE. I'm around, and then they checked again and said, "You know, are you sure you haven't applied for a visa?" So I don't know if it was somebody trying to make some sort of, I don't know, trouble, or they were just questioning where am I. I mean, the other thing that's been happening, my mother's been receiving in London phone calls, many more than one a day, from people saying, "We are the Indian government, we need to question your son, can we please have details?" I don't know if that's journalistic bravado or that is a genuine Indian embassy.
So why don't you come to India? I mean, you're sitting here openly in Dubai.
Yeah.
What is your business here in Dubai?
No, business here in Dubai, well, at the moment running down what businesses I had. I'm also professionally suing Finmechanica. I won something last year, and I hope to win something this year. This is what's keeping me going, my lawsuits.
But India will try and extradite you.
They will try and extradite me.
So why do you not either turn approver before that or cooperate with them and come to India and face questions?
Well, because what worries me is what happened to the Marines and what happened to Paul Demeter-Budgen. It takes years. How can I not earn money for years? My father disinherited me. I've got nothing. All I have is what I make.
How do you earn now?
Well, last year
I mean, you have 44 million euros over 20 years.
No, but that's when you're employing 30-odd people, it
By
goes
your
very
own
fast.
admission.
No, but when you're employing that many people...
44 million euros.
Yes, which we have a look at the accounts of your network. Look what it costs to run your network, the flying, the travel. You just said I made 130 trips to 180. Can you imagine what that costs? And flying to Europe and keeping the business going. It really goes quickly. It's unbelievable what it costs. I mean, renting offices. Over 20 years, easy to run those, especially in business when you're in such large programs.
Two quick questions.
Please.
Number one, a couple of more names that I want to throw at you, and if you could tell us, S.R. Rajalakshmi, is she from the defense accounts?
I'd have to look up who she is. I don't believe...
Did you by any chance ever in this course of your contract? Interact with people from defense, serving people. We know
No, I avoid serving people, because it's not allowed. If we had somebody on our books, he would be retired under contract.
So people like Suchit Pandey, Samir Pandey, Sajjan Kumar, Ramka.
Yeah, these are retired people.
These are retired
Yeah.
people.
I mean, every retired officer has to do something. First of all, when they retire, they're way far away from retiring. They're young, they're strong, they're intelligent. And the advice they give on the kind of provisioning on spares, introduction, logistics is invaluable. And this is what many, many retired people do. And it's legal.
In the end, you have suggested a David Headley type of video link testimony.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, but it's just a way forward. I'm looking for anyone's idea of a way forward, because at the moment we're at an impasse. I need to get these documents into the right hands.
Who are the right hands?
Well, CBI for one.
So why not just come and be questioned by them?
Because
or if they came here,
yeah, no,
if the CBI or the ED were to come here?
I would be most happy to...
Are you willing to turn approver or take a plea bargain in this?
No, I'm not taking a plea bargain or approver, because that implies there was something wrong on my side. I would stick to my position, I will defend it, I can prove it, but I will work with the authorities to find the truth in this matter.
The most recent reports are even linking one of your father's companies to Panama. You know, you've seen that, Kaiser. How do you respond to that? Panama's in the news right now for all the wrong reasons.
Panama and Liechtenstein, everything was this more than a decade ago, nearly getting on for 2 decades ago now. In those days, this was tax management. It was quite respectable and okay. It's just recently, with all the new tax legislation, that they're slowly narrowing the window for tax avoidance. And everybody was doing that. Everyone was in Panama 20 odd years ago.
So do you have accounts in Panama as well?
No, I don't. In Dubai, it's now, in terms of business friendly, it's the most business friendly place in the world. But you have to come and live here. It's not tax evasion. You're living here, so and these places are going out of date. Clearly, their time is over, which is a good thing.
Well, the other thing that quite intrigues me. I mean, you're a British citizen, wanted by India. There's a red corner notice against you. India wants your extradition. Yeah. Why are you here? Won't you be? And of course, you're living away from your family.
Why are you not in Britain?
Well, first of all, what businesses I have left, I run from here. And here still is a good place to be for any business between here and the Far East. Here in Europe, you are in the centre of, the centre of great economies. So to be here is a great place for business. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. But it's been very much on my mind, and I'm taking opinion on that, is to travel to UK, be arrested, and fight my battles from the UK. Which is something I'm thinking about.
Is that what you're contemplating?
Yes, it's one of the things.
To go to UK, be arrested, and fight a legal battle from there?
Yes.
But not come to India?
Well, it's just my concern about there's nothing wrong with the Indian legal system. It works, I know that. But it's the time it takes. This is what worries me.
Well, we'll leave it there. There are many, many questions. I don't think we've heard the last word on the AgustaWestland scam. James Christian Michael, one of the key players of this entire controversy. The Enforcement Directorate and India would want him extradited. He says he's ready to come, but he doesn't want to spend years in jail, may even be heading to his home country to be arrested. He knows he would be, and fight his legal battle there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.